welcome back to Indiescovery, the indie gaming podcast from Rock Paper Shotgun. I'm one of your hosts, Rebecca Jones, joined as ever by my lovely co-hosts Liam Richardson.
Hi!
And Rachel Watts.
Hello!
And today we've decided it's time to answer one of the biggest questions in gaming. What exactly is an indie game anyway? I don't think anyone's ever really tried to tackle this issue before, so I think within the next hour or so we should be able to properly knock it out, like get it settled once and for all. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we're good to do this, right guys?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. No, it's all fine, it's all fine. So yes, obviously I should clarify if we're going to do this semi-seriously, which I kind of hope we will. I am joking. You could write an entire PhD dissertation on this, I think, and be no closer to a definitive answer than when you started. But we thought it would be a good idea to do this as a kind of manifesto for ourselves to, get an idea of what games we will and won't be considering covering on the podcast and just digging into our own ideas on this, because there are so many little issues within the question of what is an indie, like what defines indie, who gets to decide what an indie is, are we going to talk about AA games on this podcast, which is something that we've gone back and forth on a lot, and then what is AA at that point? There's lots to think about. We almost certainly won't come up with a concrete answer, sorry about that. Actually though, I'd be amazed if we did. Imagine if we did. Imagine if we did. We've cracked the code, we've got it all
done,
sorted now, we know what an indie is, everybody move on.
This is the last episode. Done.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
6 episodes. Stop it while it's good. 6 and we're done.
And yeah, we just thought it would make for an interesting chat. And between one thing and another, we've not managed to have this talk before, even though we've been meaning to since we started.
Shall we have a little catch up? I haven't spoke to either of you much over the past fortnight. How are we doing? Are we doing okay? Are we doing well?
Yeah, surprisingly busy, isn't it, at the moment?
Yes.
For March.
Yes,
it really
it's
is.
Busy.
There are too many games to play, and not enough hours in the day. When am I supposed to eat almonds if I'm too busy playing indie games?
Yeah.
There's not enough time.
Yeah, just this week, over on the site, we've given out 3 bestest bests, and I'm living for it. But also, there are lots of games. There are so many games coming out.
There are
too
many games. Oh yeah, we're post embargo, so I can talk about Resident Evil 4 on this podcast. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Best is best. Go read my review.
Yeah.
Yes. I've been told I will fall back in love with AAA gaming when I play it for guides next week. So.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I might be biased.
Maybe a little bit.
Said that.
Maybe a little bit, but I trust you. I trust your biases.
I got very excited when you got a code because I was like, oh, finally, I can message someone about this, and it's Rebecca, so I can be completely intolerable about it and don't have to feel embarrassed.
Yes, please do. The more intolerable, the better. Because also, then I have an excuse to really go off the next time something that I really like comes out, and you can't.
It will come back round as it always does.
It always does.
Me and Rebecca's still waiting for you to play Danganronpa one day.
Well, I didn't. Did I say this in the group chat? Or did I say it just to Rebecca? I went downstairs the other day, and a friend of the podcast, Yoli, who's been playing on the Xbox a bit at the moment because she's playing through Persona 5. She was on Game Pass, and she was like in the search function. And as I walked in, she went, "What's that high school game that Rebecca spoke about on the podcast? It's like it's got like a name with like da," and I was like, "Oh, Danganronpa." She was like, "Yeah, whatever. Can we play it together?" I was like, yeah,
nice.
Of course we can.
I'm an influencer.
You have been influenced.
Yeah, I did. When you told me that story, actually, I did realise that I have been saying Danganronpa a lot and not actually slowing down enough for people to hear the name, which is really bad because I first heard about Danganronpa on a podcast and couldn't look it up for months because I couldn't work out quite what he was saying.
Really?
So yeah.
To be fair, I couldn't pronounce it for years. I think I pronounced it wrong for so many years. Through the first one when I was playing, I was like, Damban Ronda? Dan can. So yeah, it's fair enough.
I feel like I should, for the benefit of listeners who may have been frustrated in this endeavour, I'm just going to quickly spell it. It is DANGANRONPA. Yeah, there you go. I wish someone had done that for me like 3 years ago.
Is it a Japanese word?
It's. I think it's a Japanese compound word, I think.
Oh, really?
Okay.
I am told, I don't speak beyond the most incredibly basic Japanese. I don't understand Japanese, but I am told it means bullet reputation. So I guess I don't quite know where the split is, but Rachel, you'll understand presumably the game mechanic that it is referring to.
Yes.
Bullet reputation. Apparently, it's amazing that they didn't translate it like they did with Ace Attorney.
You'd
Why
think
don't
they
just call it
would.
bullet reputation? That rules. Just call it bullet reputation. That's way better than Danganronpa. Like, I get it. I get why it's Danganronpa, but bullet reputation slaps so hard.
But you know what? A lot of like Japanese
Furious.
games always come over to the West with like these really awful names, like Paranormal Sight being one of the ones I was playing this week.
Oh yeah, of course.
What?
I'm
I
excited
love
for
that
one.
game. It's great. But what kind of a name is that? Honestly,
Paranormal Sight.
Paranormal Sight. It's like paranormal, panorama, but also like stop. Just call it. Ace Attorney's the perfect kind of example for that, right? Clean, classy, know exactly what you're getting into. But Danganronpa is like, what even is that? Like, I don't
Makes no sense.
Yeah, I could not understand a thing.
Is the best job on earth being the person who names Square Enix games?
Ooh.
Because you can call them anything and someone there signs it off. There's a Kingdom Hearts game called Fragmentary Passage.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God,
That
there
sounds
is
like a
there.
medical condition.
The Kingdom
That's
Hearts
literally-
games are, so badly named.
The thing that I love about that Kingdom Hearts one is the fact that that
Yeah.
is also basically the same title as the South Park game, where the whole point of the South Park game's title is that it sounds like a medical condition. It's the same damn title.
That's a good point. Oh, my goodness. Before we dive into today's topic, I have a bit of a podcast update that I haven't told either of you about. And this is big. Gang.
Exciting.
All right, you excited for
Exciting.
this? So,
Okay.
found a website, right, that you put your podcast URL in and it tells you where it's charting around the world, right?
Okay.
So, here we go. Are you ready for this? Right, as of today, as of the 16th of March,
Yeah.
we are not charting at all in the video game section in USA, Great Britain, Germany, Sweden. They don't care. We're not charting at all. However, the Netherlands were 75.
Hell yeah.
New Zealand 86, up 148 places today, apparently. I don't know why. 240 in Italy and 67 in Slovakia. So we're big in Slovakia,
Hell yeah.
is what I've learned today.
That's incredible.
Thank you to all of our lovely listeners in those countries and everywhere else as well, of course. But
Yeah, I like it.
some good places. I can't believe that we're charting anywhere for any reason.
I know, right? It's wild. I was thinking that as well. I really like saying that we're Slovakia's 76th most popular video game podcast.
hell yeah.
I think it's
Hell
got
yeah.
a really nice ring to it.
Ask going
that
in
in
the
the
Twitter bio.
description.
Yeah.
Yes. 1000%.
I love it. Oh, thank you for that update. That was really
Yes.
fun to get the live reactions to that. It was so fun.
I have nothing else going on in my life, so I was like, I'll lean really heavily on the Slovakia thing.
Now we know who we maybe want to root for in Eurovision. We've got some some pals in there.
Yeah.
Good point, yeah.
Mm.
New Zealand, though, we'll have to find another way for New Zealand because they're not in Eurovision.
They should just
Yeah.
be allowed to be in Eurovision.
Yeah, like Australia. They should just.
Yeah,
enter
Australia's
one
in there. Why, like, geographically, I don't think that's an excuse.
They were
Anyway.
like a guest, and then they were like, and then the Eurovision committee were like, "You're great, just stay," and that could happen with New Zealand.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed
Anyway.
for New Zealand.
Eurovision chat. That's not for this podcast, or is it?
I will literally go on. I will unravel if we talk about Eurovision.
All right. Maybe then. For now,
Quickly.
just for now, we should have a bit of a chat about what we think an indie game is. You would think this would be something it would be useful for us to know, but it is actually fairly complicated as an issue, I think. I haven't actually really scripted anything for this part because I thought that we would just kind of go back and forth in the many ways that we always do when we talk about what we think is and isn't an indie game. But maybe a little bit of a script to start us off would have been a good idea. And this is what I meant when I said that I both had and hadn't prepared for today's episode and my hosting duties, because I wrote scripts for all the other bits, but this I was like, it'll be fine.
No, I think we'll be more than
We'll do
fine
it on the
with this.
night.
Yeah, we'll do it live.
We'll do it live.
Shall we literally just go around the table and just say what is an indie game? And we'll start from there.
Yes.
In my mind, there are, on the one side, very definitively, there'll be no arguments from anyone here, one person sat at a computer making something that they're pouring love into a piece of art, that is an indie game, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
They're doing it with their own funds, they're making it alone. That is, on the one hand, as indie as you can get. It's the other side, I think, where this line blurs. It's when you start to look at things like indie publishers and maybe teams of larger people who are making games. A comment that we've said a lot on this podcast is like, technically, at one point, Destiny was an indie game because it was self-published by Bungie.
Oh, well, yes, absolutely. Do you want to know the weird one that I realised this week?
What's that?
What?
As our guides writer who does all things Hoyoverse and Genshin Impact is self-published by Hoyoverse. So by that strict definition of indie, Genshin Impact, most expensive game on the planet currently, biggest budget, would be an indie. I think that is
by those parameters.
That's very like letter of the law versus spirit of the law. I think we can agree it's called something like that an indie game. But technically, in one sense, it kind of is. And then you look back at the history of Hoyoverse and you're like, well, 10 years ago, it was 3 students in a dorm room. So, there's also the question of at what point does something transition away from being an indie?
Because that's an interesting one, right? Because, like, if we're thinking about ways in which we can define indies, one of the main ones is financially. Like, who is financing this game? And in terms of Genshin, that automatically might not make it an indie because of the amount of money behind it, whether that was at the beginning or whether it is now. So that's the thing. It's like there's a bunch of parameters. I think for me, it comes down to 2, potentially maybe 3. So it kind of comes down to what I think is financial freedom and also creative freedom as well. Because I think with Genshin Impact, they had a very corporate marketing strategy, and they knew exactly who to go for, how to approach that certain demographic. And creatively, I think that kind of the creativity that's part of that is second hand to what essentially is we need to sell this game. And so I don't know, I think creativity comes a lot into what we kind of define as like an indie game as well. And like, I don't know, for that reason, I think Genshin, on that term, like you said, might be an indie, but because of what I think, probably not. I mean, I hope not. I don't
absolutely.
know. Do we have to talk about Genshin Impact on the podcast now?
I know. Well, I did throw out a deliberately absurd one to try and get the conversation flowing. I didn't realise quite how devastating it would be.
It's a really good point. I really like those 2 parameters, though. The idea of financial freedom and creative freedom.
Absolutely.
Can I clarify in your mind with financial freedom, I assume that doesn't mean any kind of outside investment?
Yeah. Again, I think base by basis, right? It's like, where's the money coming from? Is it through, and how much through financial investment, how much of a say do they have on the arts that you are essentially creating, right? I mean, it's with any other media. So I guess in that way,
that makes sense.
I think it's about control, right? Who has control over what? Like, is it 2 guys, making Super Meat Boy in their respective houses, and like obviously that's indie, but then because that's an interesting one as well, because that got picked up by Microsoft, who published it as a exclusive.
It was during their Summer of Arcade initiative that I miss all the time. I thought that was brilliant, but they poured a lot of money into that and Bastion, I think, and Fez as well. Maybe Fez was a game that was part of that initiative too. But so that is an odd one, because it was literally, like you say, it was 2 guys, but then I don't think they were like bankrolled by Microsoft. You wonder how much of the Microsoft agreement was, we'll give you some cash to carry you over the finish line, but then you're all but guaranteed sales because you're going to be right, dead center on the Xbox dashboard.
Yeah. Because in terms of creativity, I don't think Microsoft had an inch in what they were doing. No, I don't think they had any say. They just kind of spotlighted them. And I think the same with Bastion as well. I'm pretty sure Bastion specifically did that because they wanted to own the copyright for the Supergiant wanted to own the copyright to Bastion. So they purposely were like, you can help us publish, but we do not want a dime of your money for development purposes. because we want this copyright. So, and it must be maybe the same with Meat Boy and potentially Fez as well. Like they were spotlighted on were they Xbox exclusives in that case? Or did they come to PC later?
Maybe they came to PC later. I definitely remember playing Bastion for the first time on 360, but then I feel like very shortly after I bought it for my girlfriend at the time on Steam, so it must have been like a 6 month.
Because I definitely played them all on Steam. I just can't remember if there was like a contract or something. Anyway, I mean, yeah. So definitely Microsoft didn't have direct creative control. So I still would be like, yep, straight up indie, 1000%.
Yeah, I agree. I think you can, because Sony and Nintendo have also highlighted and bankrolled to an extent a lot of indies that I would still class as pure indies.
Yes, this one, I think we've talked about it before as well, is the EA Originals program really throws a lot of questions in the air on this one as well.
Yeah.
Which is one I think about a lot, because you look at EA Originals and they've got some pretty big, I mean, I guess with like Hazelight, that would be more like AA than indie, strictly speaking. But also it's clearly there for a reason to be, like, it's not published by EA, it's published as an EA original. And that distinction.
Yeah.
Can you talk a bit about what EA Original means? Like, what is that initiative? For people who might not know.
I've been trying to look it up to see if they actually ever mention explicit. I mean, it's EA, so I wouldn't hold your breath for a lot of explicit acknowledgement of where the money is going and where it's coming from and what exactly it's doing.
Yeah.
But the description from the official EA site in brief is EA Originals exists to deliver unique and memorable gaming experience to our players from the best independent studios. So I guess they do say independent in there.
Oh, okay.
So it's like a partnership, as I understand it. It is a partnership between a sort of indie or a AA studio and EA as publisher, but not, I assume not in a development capacity. But again, it's so vague, and I don't necessarily have access to this information as a games journo. Sometimes I'm allowed to talk to EA, sometimes I'm not. That's the truth.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting question. Yeah, because like I feel like that Square Enix collective initiative that they did a couple of years ago. And they published Forgotten Anne. They published that, I think. And
oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. I forgot about that. Forgotten Anne.
Yeah. I feel like I would put those games up for consideration of discussion on this podcast. But EA Originals, I don't know. I feel like with what was that game they did about the... was it like a kid in a world that's been flooded and there was monsters in the water?
Oh, Sea of Solitude, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they did Faye as well, which is a super, again, it got that super indie vibe to it, right?
Would you consider that a candidate for this pod?
It's so hard to say. This is, I basically came in here with a lot of things to throw at you two and have you answer the questions for me that I struggle with. So.
Reversed.
Got you. Reverse Uno. See, I would still say yes. I would still say yes, because sometimes it's, maybe this is weird, but it is a vibe as well. Like, what are these games doing, trying to accomplish? Is it something new? Is it different? Because in that case, that endeavor of creating something different feels indie, and especially in scope. If like these are like, I'm pretty sure Sea of Solitude was 6 hours, maybe less.
It was short.
Yeah, it was short.
Yeah,
it's a short. That's a very,
even I finished it. That's how short it is,
right? But that is a game which is very short and definitely has a specific point of view, which makes me feel like it's indie. Like I didn't quite get along with it just because. I don't know, that's just me. But like, that's good, because games shouldn't be for everyone. And so when something has a point of view, I'm more inclined for it to feel like an indie game rather than something that is like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I like what you say about it having kind of an indie vibe, because this is something that I think Liam and I have talked about in the past. Actually brings us back to our very first episode where I mistakenly, not knowing the context at the time, referred to Pentiment as an indie based on vibes, not knowing who it was developed or published by. Then Liam and I had this discussion a couple of weeks later where we were like, at what point, there are some genres I feel that at the moment feel like they belong in the indie space. So exclusively, like we talked about visual novels and point and click adventure games, and those feel like things that don't they don't feel like they're getting AAA funding from the publishers anymore. you know, even when it is being helmed by quite a big team, it feels like this, again, we're talking about, you know, feeling a lot. Like we feel looking at, like, I think we were saying Pentiment has the feeling that it probably had about the same budget as Broken Age, right? We're not looking at something that was like, you know, not the latest Final Fantasy or whatever scale and scope of budget to it. But obviously there you've got, you know, it's published by Xbox, it's developed by Obsidian. It's not, you can't reasonably compare it again to the work of the solo indie dev working in their spare room. But somehow we have to reconcile that all of these exist in a space together because the games industry is a single space in a sense. And then I brought no answers. I've been a real jerk about this. I've just brought questions to make you two talk about.
No, it's good. We're like feeling our way through.
Yeah,
we're like spelunking,
like a panel.
Oh, okay.
Ooh, yeah.
You went for panel, and I was like, we're underground.
We've swapped from last episode. Now you're talking about holes in the ground, and I'm talking about sophisticated spaces. What you had me thinking there, just like a little. There's not really a point to this, but it's interesting, I guess. Like, you know, we're talking about how now, if a game was a point and click or like a visual novel, you would almost sort of expect it to be within the indie space because those are genres that sort of aren't bankrolled by AAA or AA anymore. But I was just thinking, like, you know, back in the 90s, it was the opposite. You know, Sierra and LucasArts were on top of their game. You know, and a boxed copy of Monkey Island was like a AAA game. But then last year, we get the most recent Monkey Island game, which is now published by Devolver and is, I guess, technically an indie. So it's almost like a series has gone from AAA down to indie purely because of this like nebulous conversation that we're having now, right? Like the parameters that it falls under, and it's very strange. Like, and you're right. I think it's interesting when you said that everything, it just falls within this wider umbrella of the games industry anyway. And, you know, I think ultimately, in terms of what we cover on this podcast, is probably more things that have been overlooked by the wider gaming press is probably my feeling for what we cover here, right? Is like, we want to talk about cooler games that maybe don't get the spotlight they deserve, or, you know, things like that. But
certainly, yeah, as a manifesto, I think that's a good starting point. I think that the fact that we are part of Rock Paper Shotgun and have that kind of backing from our parents, like, to do that as well, means that we're already kind of in that mindset. So I know I sometimes forget that that's kind of an unusual position to be in as games journalists, and you know, but it's like you could kind of go anywhere and hear about the latest AAA game, and yeah, it's nice. Yeah. It does just feel nice to be able to kind of in a selfish way get the scoop, but also know that you're bringing something to an audience that might not hear about it otherwise is just really satisfying, I find.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. It's so nice.
I wanted to touch upon something really quickly that you said, Liam, before we move on.
Yeah, of course.
Because that is interesting, right? Why has Monkey Island in particular gone from something that has been AAA, like Wonder Boy, to now being something that's particularly indie? And I honestly think it has something to do with like the way in which we, you know, games were 2D, and now big blockbuster AAA is now, you know, as technology has advanced, whatever, is now 3D with all this new tech. And it's almost like, and this involves Pentiment as well, I think there's a misconception that like games that look good and feel good to play and are bigger in scope are AAA, rather than like your 2D Pentiment, which is very specific, is indie, right? So I feel like that perspective of like, okay, well, Hyperlight Drifter, which was a 2D game, was an indie game. Hyperlight Breakers now in 3D, bigger scope. That doesn't feel indie anymore to me. Even though it definitely is. But it's kind of like it's just a vibe, and it's definitely not correct. Like, of course, like a 3D open world like game can be totally and utterly indie, but it's that vibe. Like, I don't know, it's the amount of polish, maybe. I don't know. That's just me. But I think Monkey Island's a good example because it's like, it's always been very like cheeky, 2D, about pirates and everything. And I just think that's a good example to look at the trajectory.
Oh, yeah.
Like, yeah.
And there's an interesting point to be raised there as well. Because I was big into point and clicks in the 90s and early 2000s. I have a reasonably good knowledge of the history of them. And a thing that I find interesting from that is that, like, because they were the sort of the high prestige games of the day, or were among the high prestige genres of the day, there was that massive like crash in their popularity in the late 90s and early 2000s, and part of that was blamed on the fact that they went 3D too early in a lot of cases. And so I wonder if if they kind of collapsed under the weight of their own AAA status, meeting this new technology that they weren't really ready to incorporate, and that has then, you know, fractured a lot of those studios like Sierra, like LucasArts, that were doing those games. And so now the creators have gone on to independent projects that, you know, as we say, it's like a continuum. It's all part of the same history of gaming, to say that, you know, that's what happens. Because I'm thinking of Gabriel Knight in particular, which was my favourite point-and-click series.
You
of
love
the 90s.
Gabriel Knight.
I love Gabriel Knight. And Gabriel Knight pretty much single-handedly killed Golden Age point-and-click. The third game was so... I mean, like,
there's been a murder.
Yes, it was still well written, but it went 3D too soon, and they ended up having to, you know, cut corners at the end of development because of the fact that it was this 3D game that they couldn't quite handle, and you know, there were criticisms of the puzzles and so on, and literally you will find blogs on the internet saying this game was the moment where you realise that point and clicks were kind of over for AAA.
Wow,
Mr. Knight, you have some explaining to do.
You could take a forensic sort of attitude to this and try and chart all that, but I do wonder if it's like, you know, and then the scaling back into things like, you know, 2D environments and more artistic, less attempts at high realism is because the budgets went down because they ran in too soon, and like it's all part of a wider history again of the games industry. And it's so hard, I think, even if you do intend to talk about indies, without reference to AAA, even if it's only in passing for that reason.
I love stuff like that.
It's a really interesting, there is like a cyclical nature to how, you know, like genres specifically go AAA and then fall back, and then obviously the indie, the smaller budgets, the ability to appeal to a niche audience, they then kind of like trickle back and become like indie darlings. Like, you know, retro FPSs are huge now and are very much an indie genre, but in the 90s they were the biggest games on the planet, and you almost sort of like, I'm almost thinking like what happens in 20 years, like, you know, we're kind of going through like a revolution at the moment of like PlayStation 1 style graphics because it's easier and cheaper for developers to do, and you almost think like, well, what genres in 20 years is going to be considered indie? Are we going to be playing like grey military shooters like Call of Duty, and that's going to be like indie games? It's going to be like these people who grew up with like Call of Duty in the mid 2010s and like, oh yeah, like we're making like a homage to the Infinity Ward's like classic series but on an indie budget, and you know, open world games. You know, it's just wild to think about. Well, we're going to see an indie battle royale at some point in you know, 2045.
My god,
I think the indie battle royales are already making their way onto Steam. To be honest.
Yeah, very true. Yeah.
I don't know. I cannot attest to their quality. I have not got around to playing any of them, but I have seen one or two that I'm like, oh, that looks interesting. Especially when Squid Game came out and everyone was trying to make an extremely quick Squid Game. I hate saying Squid Game. I had to say it so much when it came out, and I'm like,
Squid Game.
Squid Game. Squid Game.
What about a Squid Game about squids? Squid Game squids. Anyway.
Splatoon.
Yeah. Thank you. You delivered a punchline that I was just nowhere near there. Thank you for that. Here's an interesting little grenade to throw in the middle of the two of you.
Go on.
People who make games for platforms like Roblox or Dreams or modes in Fortnite, are they indie developers?
1000% yes.
Mm-hmm. I think yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
But that is a good point, right? You're using a popular platform to make something within that platform. Does it have the same status as said platform? And I think no. I think like, but it's interesting as well, because with something like Dreams, to play those indie games, you need to buy a 30 quid game to get access to those games. But again, Dreams is all about creativity. I think that's just what it comes back to, like, it's just the intention behind it, especially as they're completely outside like commercial and corporate like influences, right? And so for me, that's why they feel indie. Like I've not played any Roblox games, and I don't plan ever to play any Roblox games ever.
I don't recommend it. No.
Yeah, but those kind of
Liam and I are both just getting that 1,000-yard stare as we remember our time with Roblox. I think we're both a bit too old to have played it as the intended audience, but we've both played it for work, and it's just like...
Yeah, never. I would never going to do that.
One of the worst
can't.
weeks of my life.
So I don't know. That's how I see it. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I feel vibes
cool.
again.
Yeah, that actually, it does... I'm able to, as ever, manipulate this back around to a talking point that I wanted to talk about, because I think it is related, which is that, throwing back to the kind of origins of this podcast, when Liam and I were talking about if we wanted to do a podcast together. And one of the things that I suggested was like a visual novel book club, right? If you recall. And then I was looking into, because I play a lot of, at the moment, like Japanese visual novels, and I was trying to work out the status of a lot of those, because they feel pretty AA in a lot of ways, but I was kind of like trying to establish status to see where we'd fall in terms of their eligibility. And I kind of realised that it's not necessarily like the whole AAA, AA indie isn't necessarily universally applicable, in that, the culture around game development in Japan is largely the same, but is subtly different enough that you can't necessarily just throw those three labels on it, even if you can establish what they mean from like a sort of like European or North American game development perspective. There are slight differences in the way games are developed across the world, and I think when you talk about things like Roblox and Dreams as well, there's kind of that it isn't a sort of 3-tiered one-size-fits-all system. You're going to see those variations and things where you've got like Doujinsoft, I don't know if I pronounced that right, my apologies, games in Japan, which are definitely those very, very indie titles of being like someone developed it in their spare time, maybe using like the Ren'Py visual novel engine or whatever. And then there's obviously, you've got things like, you understand what Japanese AAA is. It's the same AAA as everyone else, largely. It largely is the AAA for everyone else. But then obviously I was looking mainly into something like Spike Chunsoft, which is the studio behind roughly half of all the games I play. They do Danganronpa, they did Zero, what's it called? Oh, it's gone.
The Nonary games?
The Nonary games, thank you, Zero Escape, the Nonary games. They did like 4-2 Scramble. They do a lot of visual novels and detective games and games in that vein. And I'm like, I have been unable to establish to my own satisfaction where Spike Chunsoft sit in all of this. Because it's clear that they've got money behind them enough to put out a lot of games that they want to. They are self-publishing stuff under their own banner. Kind of the closest equivalent I was thinking was maybe like Old Telltale, but then I was like, I don't know where I think Old Telltale's at either. So...
Oh yeah, that's a stumper.
Telltale's a tricky one, isn't it?
It is. Sorry, I did say I was going to just throw all the hardest ones at you and then sort of sit back.
Well, Spike Chunsoft, I would probably say...
No?
Maybe, no is my thing, but is this a question about when a... Right, I'm gonna say something here that's gonna be like massively wanky, and you're gonna lose respect for me, right?
Bring it on.
Is there a concept of like double I games?
Oh,
do Devolver?
What's that?
If you're published by Devolver, does that make you like a double I, which is almost like equivalent to a double A? Yeah, sits between indie. So like indie, double I, double A, triple A is almost like the pipeline.
What does it mean? What does that mean? Sorry, I've literally never heard this.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just like I'm trying to work out like what. I guess I'm trying to think of a name for something like if I'm published by Devolver or No More Robots, like that doesn't make me any less indie.
No,
but it gives me access to like a pool of resources that maybe I wouldn't have gotten if I was like self-publishing, and like. Does that
I get entirely what you're saying. I do think it makes a lot of sense that there's maybe a category in here that doesn't really have a name yet.
Yeah.
And like as you say, it does feel more like it sits to the side of AA, but as a slightly distinct entity. Or are we just reinventing AA?
I've just got this like thing in my brain. I've got this like scale. And I'm just trying to like visually put all this stuff on the scale, and I'm like, no, but that doesn't make sense. I can't go there. I'm gonna go there. Yeah. I'm just trying to mind map everything. I can't do it.
When I said double I almost felt your soul like drift backwards from your eyes. It was quite a thing to see, actually.
I've never heard that term before.
I think it is a pre-existing. I'm not smart enough to have made that up. It's definitely a pre-existing term.
It sounds like something. Yeah.
Yeah. But like with Telltale, honestly, my gut is because they were working with brands like The Walking Dead and Game of Thrones and like Marvel, that they almost feel like there was probably too much money going around there. And it's a bit like what Rachel, you were saying about like the creative control part.
Yeah.
Like I can imagine Telltale had a limited amount of creative control with those brands, and that maybe changes it.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, like for sure, Telltale doesn't feel indie, right? But then you kind of look at the space they occupied for a long time and you're like, they weren't AAA.
No.
Right,
no.
for sure. Even though they had all of those IPs under their banner. I mean, I think that working with a big IP is not necessarily the be all and end all. For example, I think it's Kaigen Games who make the Simulacra series also do some Doctor Who games.
They do.
Right.
You know.
I was going to say Bithell Games made the John Wick game and they're making a Tron game. But they are very, very much indie. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
This is just like Lovecraftian horror levels of I wasn't prepared for how messy this was gonna get as we discussed it. Just
the Telltale ones fucked me up.
Yeah, me too.
That's like crumbled my worldview.
Right.
I feel like I had a solid idea. I was like, nope, I got it. This is how I feel. And now I'm out to sea with no lifeboat, no life jacket. I don't know. I don't know which way is up.
Have you been playing Dredge again?
I want to be playing Dredge all the time.
Oh, it does look good.
I'm so excited to play Dredge.
It's going to be amazing. Yeah, so sorry to just throw all that in and kind of make you deal with it. But yeah, it's kind of, it is that case of like, as I looked at the games that I really love these days, most of them sit in a really awkward place. Because I feel like I'm playing a couple of big AAA titles all the time, and I'm playing some little one-shot indies, and then almost everything that I'm really, really into sits in that really awkward grey area.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you know what? We don't have to have an answer.
We don't.
We can just
kind
be
of magical.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that actually, surprisingly, despite the fact that we just came in here to throw ideas at the wall, we did come up with kind of some good ideas for a manifesto. It's like, we feel like it's games that are underrepresented in sort of mainstream gaming media. It is games where the devs had a lot of creative control. I think those are both really good starting points. Also, the idea that it's kind of at our discretion, I think, is really important as well. We can just kind of go
vibes.
Vibes, absolutely. I don't think
I completely agree.
We would ever want to be in a position where we were sort of nickel and diming ourselves over whether we should talk about something if someone was really into it. Unless it's like, I will keep my Sims obsession to a minimum, obviously, because I think if anything's AAA, that is.
There's no room for discussion about that one, really, is there?
No, not really. I think I'll put Sims and Genshin on a very high shelf, and Tomb Raider. They can go on the AAA shelf that I only bring out for other stuff.
Oh, Tomb Raider's again. Tomb Raider's a double. Tomb Raider's dropping down the list.
That's actually
Tomb
really
Raider
true.
is now a AA game.
I actually think I said it, and now you said that, and I immediately agree with you because like they just sold it off to Embracer, right, at a pretty big loss for like it's not valued the way it was, even 10 years ago. Clearly,
no, absolutely not.
I mean, no, but yes, I agree.
Yeah.
One last point. Sorry, you were really like wrapping that up amazingly there, and I'm just going to run and just smash that conclusion.
Go for it.
How do we feel about games that begin indie and then very much transition into not indie? And I'm talking explicitly about Minecraft. That
is such a good point. Thank you for raising it, because it would have been really remiss not to bring Minecraft into this discussion.
It's made by someone from space, who we'll never know, an entity that doesn't exist, and then it gets bought by Microsoft for billions, and now it's like a platform that's so lucrative, it's not even exclusive to the publisher that purchased it.
Mm-hmm.
It still sort of feels indie to me.
1000%.
But it's like not. I mean, it was inspired by fucking Dwarf Fortress. Like, it couldn't be more indie. Like,
yeah,
I guess it's not. No,
no. I think you're right. It's that transition for sure. I think you've like. It's a really good point. For sure, it came out of space. Maybe back then it was for sure, right? When the space farted it out. But then when
Hatsune Miku, is that what
much more indie than that? Just like 0 human developers involved.
Not a human hand has touched this. It is the most indiest indie. But yeah, I don't. Yeah, there's no way that game is indie now. So when was the 10-year anniversary? Was it last year or the year before?
2021, I think, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I've watched part because it kept relaunching into various betas, didn't it? So
yeah, true. Has any other game done that? I think it's just.
I'm just trying to think.
I think.
Is Minecraft its own category on our like nutritional
I would love that
triangle of gaming? Minecraft is just in its own little bit.
Yes.
Because it's not like a Stardew Valley that is incredibly successful because it hasn't.
But still very clearly.
Yeah. I guess like if Sony bought Stardew Valley, right, that would be the same level. But as it stands,
bought Stardew Valley and then like bankrolled it for years to the point where it was clearly.
Yeah.
It was like inextricably associated with Sony as a brand.
Yeah.
For example.
But with Minecraft, Minecraft has a cinematic universe as well. Like there are other Minecraft games, and obviously Minecraft Legends is coming out next month, I think, as well. Yeah. So it's like it's not even just the game anymore. If Concerned Ape were to make another Stardew game with a bigger team, and then another one in 10 years' time, that would probably follow the same route, but he's going off in a different direction, right? But I feel like it's like the scope again. It's like the scope of a game. Like Minecraft's scope is like comic books, t-shirts, clothing lines. Like it's a franchise. They franchised it essentially, which is why it doesn't feel. There's no way that game is indie, even though the vibes are very much indie.
Yes, I mean, I would say that an indie game can be franchised and still be indie. I actually was going to pitch that as an episode idea to you guys later.
Oh, really?
I won't go into that too much right now, but I do think I just blow your mind with this because it's a really evil thought that just occurred to me. They hired Telltale to do a Minecraft spin-off game, which is just like the complete implosion of everything that we've been saying here right now. It is going to absolutely destroy us.
Oh God,
that was pre-Microsoft though, wasn't it?
Was it? I'm not entirely sure.
I feel like...
Yeah, how long ago was that?
That was about 2018, because it was when Telltale were going under. That was the game they finished as they were wrapping up.
Was it?
Yes.
Oh.
They definitely announced it pre-Microsoft acquisition, because I remember distinctly them saying it was going to be free to anyone who already owned Minecraft. Citation needed. I shouldn't say I distinctly remember that. I remember reading that in a pub on a Christmas party.
On a beer mat.
I definitely was drunk. Like, I cannot say that for certain. Great journalism, Liam. Fucking hell. But it was definitely pre-Microsoft acquisition that they announced that they were working with Telltale. But I think, maybe the game came out post-acquisition.
You know what? I have a tool here that allows me to research such questions.
Nah, screw that.
Let me type it in.
Let me just remember wistfully one thing that happened.
Minecraft story mode?
Yeah, that's what it was called.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. 2017. First 5 episodes. Oh, God, this looks pants. And I love Minecraft. This looks bad. God.
I never played it. I know Patton Oswalt is in it as like one of the voice actors.
Really?
Yeah, I own it.
Oh, right, that makes sense. So it's an episodic game like Wolf Among Us.
Telltale.
Yes. Game of Thrones. Oh, I understand. God, who even remembers that anymore? Like, this game is not... I don't think this game has been talked about in years. We are the first people to talk about Minecraft story mode.
Someone is going to get a Google alert and be like, huh?
Not if we don't put it in the show notes. It's just be.
I'll make sure to do that. I'll do it.
Exactly. Oh,
cool.
Right. I said because this debate could go on for literal years. I said I would call time after about half an hour. It's been about half an hour. So do we have any concluding remarks we'd like to say about what is an indie? It's time to vote. Yes or no? Is it indie? I'm not going to tell you what it is, but is it indie?
Yes.
Decision
yes.
time.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, good. Right.
I'm panicked.
Problem solved.
Yes. Yes, it is. Just like zero chill.
So yeah, for the second part of our chat today, I think we're just going to have a little quick talk about some indies that have been released over the last few weeks that we've been enjoying. Yeah. And that's the plan, really, because we just haven't talked about new releases in a few episodes. So
we haven't.
No, because we've been theming. We've been theming a lot, so I wanted to bring it back.
We have.
Bring it back to the new stuff.
Bring it all back to you.
Well, I haven't really been playing many indie things.
Sorry.
I'll just get my bit out of the way.
Sorry, that's
It was good.
It was really good.
It was the slightly deadpan tone of it that I enjoyed.
Yeah.
Bring it all back to you.
Well, I wasn't gonna like proper sing it, was I? I was just.
I think that. Do you not think that would match our energy if we just burst into song randomly halfway through a segment?
Do not give me the opportunity because I will take it.
Do it. You don't want me to do it, but I want you to do it.
From singing the Paradise Killer intro to S Club 7. You won't be able to stop me.
That was a genuine threat. For
God's sake, someone talk about an indie game.
I'm going to get this out the way right away because I've been playing nothing but Resident Evil 4 for weeks. I played through the original, then I've played through the remake. I've not had time to play many indies, but one indie I have been playing is Rhythm Sprout, published by Tiny Build. I can't remember who developed it. That's on me. My apologies. But that game absolutely fucking rules. I've only played it for a few hours, but it's a rhythm game where you play a little onion knight killing sweet treats with weird faces, and the music is incredible. It's quite hard for a rhythm game, but maybe a little bit harder than I thought it would be. But yeah, Rhythm Sprout. Rachel reviewed it for the website if you'd like to read some good words about it.
Nice. Yes, it's very difficult. I thought I was good at rhythm games, and then I played Rhythm Sprout, and I was like, oh no.
Yeah, Sam.
Oh God. But there is a mode which lets you combine the left and right buttons into one. And so if you're having troubles, you can make it easy for yourself. Even then, though, you still need to get the rhythm correct. So,
fair.
But yeah, it's a really good rhythm game. You recommended it to me, or you told me about it, and then I played it, and I was like, it's a really good rhythm game. The songs, the music is so good.
It's so good.
Oh, yeah, that's a great recommendation.
One that's all just made out of laughs when you're in the haunted mansion.
Yes, that's one of my favorites. That and one of the tropical ones, but yeah, that's a good one.
It's so good. Anyway, what have you two been playing?
Why don't you go first, Rebecca?
Well, I'm pretty sure we're going to talk about the same game for at least part of this, so I don't think it matters too much. But yes, I have recently, as in last night, started playing A Nemoyapolis Chapter 1. We mentioned this in our most anticipated indies of the year at the start of the year. Also, shout out to developer Andrew Quist, who got in touch with us on Twitter and was such a good sport about us being silly and saying his name a lot on the pod. So thank you.
He was incredibly good sport about us being creeps. Andrew Quist.
And again, thank you.
Thank you, Andrew Quist.
Oh dear. But yes, the game, chapter 1 of the game came out on, I believe, March 5th. It got delayed by a few days from the original release of February 27th, but it is out now. It has been a hell of a couple of weeks for me, so I only started playing it last night. But I think I'm about halfway through. I think it's about 3 hours altogether.
Yeah.
Yes, liminal space horror. Very cool so far. I think mainly because I've managed to beeline to all of the swimming pool areas. And
yes!
Damn, I love a swimming pool. Just
That's
generally.
what I got. They are so good, aren't they?
Oh, they're just brilliant. I mean, it's... The only criticism I have really so far is that I'm too relaxed because I love a swimming pool. and you know, the character sort of goes into the big swimming pool level, which was meant to be, I think, the final level, but I managed to sort of sequence break because I found loads and loads of tokens straight away to unlock the areas. Because when you give me a jump button, I will jump on the roof and I will find the 20 like unlocked tokens that you've hidden up there, Andrew Quist. So yeah, I immediately broke into the last level because it was like family tropical resort, and I was like, hell yeah, that's where we're going. And yeah, you get in there and your playable character is just like, I'm not comfortable here. There is a really off vibe in here, which just didn't quite gel with my attitude, which is like, yay, I'm in a swimming pool. I'm going down the slide. I love it. Going around the lazy river, and it's an infinite loop of lazy river, and don't threaten me with a good time.
Yeah, it's definitely a different vibe than like all the empty office cubicles. Which was creepy.
The conference center was really the point where I got freaked out last night. I did the sort of intro bit, which is I think not procedurally generated like the rest.
Yes.
Then I did the conference center, and then I skipped to the swimming pool level, which I think is technically probably the last level that you're meant to reach, but I managed to unlock it early. The conference center creeped me out. That was the worst. I think it genuinely a thing that I'm really enjoying about this game is it taps into a very specific horror that I don't think you experience very often in games, which is the particular horror of being totally lost and not knowing whether you're going to be able to find your way back to the place where you need to be. Because there were points when I was playing it, especially in the conference center, which is the idea is it's just this huge empty. We've all been to like big convention centers, and if you can imagine one when it's completely devoid of anything except a few chairs stacked in corners, it is a very confusing space already.
And
it's being procedurally generated. It's kind of changing around you. There's just a lot of similar but not the same rooms, and there were points where I was looking around going like, I've been running around for like 5 minutes and I haven't found my way back to where I started from, and I was literally like, am I gonna have to quit this game because I'm so lost? Am I gonna have to like basically restart a checkpoint because I'm so horrifically lost that I just don't have, and the game is very well designed to always sort of loop you back to where you need to be just at the point where you're starting to despair of ever finding your way out. It's like I've seen a bit of the sort of developer behind the scenes stuff that he's put on the Steam page, and it shows you the levels procedurally generating around the player, and it's very clever. One of the things that the Steam page says is something like, if you feel like you're hopelessly lost, then you're on the right track. If you feel like you're going around in circles, that's when you're on the right track. So I don't really quite know how it's working, but the game is very good at just getting to the point where, because I was playing with my partner, and incidentally, if you want a really good simulator for being with, if you're like in a long-term relationship and you want a simulation of being in an unfamiliar city together and just being like on the verge of having an argument about how lost you are, I do recommend this game, because it's just, you'll just be there like, we've seen that palm tree before. We've been past that palm tree before. We've been here. So yeah, that was an interesting experience to play that with a second person.
Yes.
But yeah, just at the point where you've seen the same landmark maybe 3 times and you're like, I think we're doing something wrong. I think we're stuck in an infinite loop. Just then the game will throw you in something that you'd like, this is new, and will sort of keep you moving through it.
That's so interesting, because I got to the same point as well. It's that point of, I'm going to have to boot out of this game because I cannot find this elevator. And then you just turn a corner and it's there, and I just sprinted towards it.
Yes! Oh my God, just so grateful when you find it.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not letting you out of my sight. Like, because I can turn a corner and I will just get lost again.
Yeah.
So yeah, I remember sprinting towards the elevator and just being like, I gotta get out of here. I gotta leave.
It's such a specific type of horror, because so far I know that I've heard potentially something a bit more supernatural happens at the very end of this first chapter, but
really?
as it is, I don't think it's like a huge, like, I think it might just be
a bit spooky,
a bit of a more explicit supernatural happening that's a bit more in your face. Whereas clearly there's something wrong, but you don't really have a sense. You're just alone in this vast space, and that is the entire driving force behind the horror for the vast majority of the game. And it's very effective. That is what I will say. It's very effective. Joking aside, I do think that the environments are, some of them, quite lovely, and you do kind of just think, I would just settle down here.
The empty mall is so nice.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
I absolutely love that the game is about being lost in these, empty spaces. I didn't realize it was procedurally generated, but it sounds like it's done in such a smart way. I'm desperate to play this. I don't find the idea of being lost in an empty space like that creepy. I've got when I think about maybe wandering around a school after hours, of it being quite weirdly comforting. So I wonder how I'm going to find this game.
Ooh.
Because
I would be intrigued to know, yeah.
Yeah, because when I flew to PAX this time last year, and when I fly to Boston, I have to get to Newcastle Airport at 3 a.m. before anything opens. And they kind of direct you to the terminals through the back rooms, literally the back rooms.
Oh, wow.
And I kind of love that space, just that kind of quiet. I don't know. I find that weirdly comforting. So I do wonder how I'll find this game. It's probably going to make me shit myself, but I'm excited to find it.
Well, on that note, I'll hand over to Rachel for what have you been playing that you would like to highlight from the last few weeks?
What have I been playing? I've been playing that game, obviously. I can't pronounce it.
Anemoiopolis, I think. It's like a joke at the start of the game where the character... Yes! Did you walk up to the billboard and the character's trying to pronounce it? It's really funny.
That's funny.
I was like, that's me.
Yeah, because he even says the first thing he says is Animeopolis, which is the way that I was saying it if I wasn't careful. So I love that. That was really good. I must be called out by a game immediately.
Yeah, me too. Love it. So I've been playing a bunch of games. Very quickly, it's not quite indie, but Paranormal Sight by Square Enix is probably one of the best horror vision novels probably I've ever played. It's really, really good. 10 hours if you want to play it. If you're into Danganronpa, Zero Escape, yeah, definitely go play it. I've written a review. You can go check that out. But honestly, go in knowing nothing about it. So that's up to you. But that's the best way to play it, is if you just don't know anything about it. So take my word for it. It's really good. If you like that shit, do it right now. But back onto the indie train. A game that from this year that I've really enjoyed and I keep thinking about is The Pale Beyond, which people have described as Frostpunk on a boat. So I'm not really into survival simulation games. I really like Frostpunk, but that's because the story is so strong. And The Pale Beyond is kind of the same in that regard. Like on the surface, it's still very similar. You're looking after a group of people who are in hazardous weather conditions, and you're trying to keep as many of them alive as you can. But where The Pale Beyond kind of has a one-up over Frostpunk is that the story is so good. All the characters are great. Even the ones that hated my guts, you play as the captain of the ship and have to make hard decisions. Even the ones that hated my guts, I was like, I still like you though. I still really, and I'm gonna try and make you I want to keep you alive. I think it's just believe me, a lot of them have problems with you very early on, because someone's hidden a box of biscuits, and I'm like, come on, mate, we're in the middle of nowhere, and they're like, but my wife gave me these. I'm like, I'm sorry, we weren't supposed to be in this situation. You need to share them. And then it's like, I'll remember that. And you're like, oh, please don't hate me. But it's a lot of the decisions, as much as they are kind of grueling, it's not so much as in Frostpunk's feeding sawdust to children kind of grueling. It's still very much, it's still a tale that is very hopeful. The characters are great. The setup is essentially you are the captain of this ship who has set off on an expedition to find another missing ship. One that has mysteriously disappeared a couple of months ago, something like that. The ship gets caught in a massive ice sheet, and so you and your crew of 20 people, all individual characters who have individual personalities and names and all that. Yeah, you basically have to survive for as long as you can until rescue comes, or you decide to leave and just try and survive off the ship. It's just really good. It's a great game. I think about it quite regularly. I've played it a couple times. Yeah, it's awesome. Definitely check it out if you love Frostpunk, but also if you're like me and you want a bit more story to your survival games, then this is the one. It's really good. There's this lady that has a bunch of snow dogs, and she's very much because she's very keeps to herself and her dogs, and she's like, she doesn't really like talk to the crew, and just getting to the point where you're like friendly with her is the best feeling ever. And you find out she's into theatre, and you're like, this is adorable. I love you, and I'll protect you at all costs. It's honestly great. And a bunch of the characters are like that. There's so many people I like. There's this guy with an eye patch called Lefty, because he only has like one eye. And he's like this like short Santa Claus looking dude. And he's adorable. And he's teaching someone how to read. And I'm just like, you are the nicest person. Yeah, it's just a really great game. There's a lot more systems to it than I'll touch upon here. But yeah, for sure, go check it out if you like any of what I just said.
The Pale Beyond.
It's not on my wish list. I'm just looking at it on Steam now. Beyond. It's so good.
I feel like it kind of went under a lot of people's radar just because, to be honest, like I would have breezed over it if I hadn't really known what it was. I don't know if Bellular Studios have done anything else. I'm just having a really quick look. Those are the developers. It's the thing that made me pay attention was that it's being published by Fellow Traveller, and I love them as publishers. They pick up some really interesting games, and so it's one of those publishers you just trust, kind of like Devolver in a way. Like anything that Fellow Traveller, Finji, or another one, or Devolver pick up, I pay attention because there's something there. There's something, and that was what the situation with this game was. Yeah.
They're good curators of a certain type of game, aren't they?
Yes. Yeah. But yeah, The Pale Beyond.
Add it to my wish list.
Yep,
the current wish list count, 105.
Oh.
So we're getting there. It was like 20 or something when we started this pod. So.
No, it wasn't.
Oh, dear.
Thanks, gang.
Incredible.
Oh dear. Let us know in the comments if you've also got way too many games on your wish list now.
Oh yeah,
I want to know.
Tell us your wish list count. Absolutely. I want to know it.
So just before we go, our final section, as ever, is going to be on our current set of hyperfixations. The things that we just can't get out of our brains for the last couple of weeks. So, Liam, would you like to start?
Hello. So, the temptation for this section was to talk about a little game called Resident Evil 4 Remake. But you know what? If you want to hear what I think about that game, you can read my review on rockpapershotgun.com.
It's very good. The review.
Oh, thank you. That's very nice. I almost accidentally paid myself a compliment there. Shan't be doing that. So what I want to talk about today is another little podcast that I'm absolutely obsessed with. It's called Let's Make a Rom-Com. I think it's by a Canadian podcast producer, and it's hosted by 3 Canadian comedians, Ryan Beale, Maddie Kelly, and Mark Chavez. And the whole concept of the podcast is they're trying to write a romantic comedy and get it picked up by a movie studio. This season is actually a sequel to one they did last year called Let's Make a Sci-Fi, where they tried to make a serious science fiction TV show, despite the fact that they were 3 comedians, and that was really hard for them to do it without taking the piss constantly. That season is phenomenal. It's a great bit of podcasting. They talk to a bunch of people who've written some famous science fiction. In the last episode, they actually did write this 1 hour long pilot for a science fiction TV show, and they got like the guy who voiced Commander Shepard in Mass Effect to narrate it. And
oh my God.
They got a bunch of actors like Rainn Wilson from The Office played a character in that. So this season is as good as Let's Make a Sci-Fi. It's an interesting evaluation of romantic comedies, and because they are comedians, they're a little bit more comfortable this time writing something that has comedy to it. The concept for their romantic comedy is unhinged and fantastic, and I'm so invested. I really want them to make it because I really wanted the TV show they wrote last year to be picked up. I thought it was genuinely compelling. So yeah, that's Let's Make a Rom-Com. Go listen to it. It's a good podcast.
Ooh, sounds great.
Really interesting.
Who's next?
Yeah, sorry, I was just zoned thinking about like I'm gonna have to go look that up now. Like, oh, sorry. I got so excited I forgot I was hosting our podcast. thinking about that podcast. So, Rachel, please.
Hello. So ever since the Nintendo Direct dropped the news that a new Professor Layton game will be made, I have been obsessing over revisiting all the previous Professor Layton games. It's been awesome. It's been a lovely trip down memory lane. I've been a big Professor Layton fan ever since the first game. That and the news that the Nintendo eShop is closing, so a lot of the Layton games won't be available digitally or like on that platform anymore. So, and I lent my second Professor Layton game to someone in uni and didn't get it back. So I was like, well, that's the only cartridge I don't have. And I lost the third one. So before all the physical copies like triple in price because you can't get them digitally anymore, I bought one from Oxfam and one from CEX secondhand. And yeah, I've just been having a great time. Just like looking at the boxes, like I'm playing through the first one. And yeah, I'm so pumped for the new game, New World of Steam. I love all that steampunk nonsense, but not like the cringy stuff, like the cute steampunk when it's like, you know what I mean. But yeah, I'm really happy. I'm great. I'm living out like when I was, 14 years old playing the first one again. It's great.
Damn.
So yeah, it's been nice.
That does sound nice. Oh, R.I.P. the Nintendo eShop. Yeah.
I know.
Oh, I know.
3DS eShop, rather.
One point, Capcom have discounted all the Ace Attorney games on the 3DS eShop to like £3 only in the US. What are you playing at, Capcom?
I saw that.
So I really wanted to pick up some of the Ace Attorneys that might never come to anything else, but never mind.
They'll come to something else. I'll make them.
I hope they do.
We
Yeah.
would
glare at them. Give them the old evil eye until they do it.
Use all that Resi remake money to remaster all the Ace Attorneys, please.
Oh God, could you imagine?
That'd be so good. Also, I would like to live in the world of Professor Layton. I think it's quite charming. And I think I'd quite like it if I went, to Morrison's to buy some bread and the cashier was like, "Oh, you're right, son. If you want to buy a loaf of Hovis, first you got to do this math puzzle." And I'm like, "Oh, fine, okay, I'll do it then."
I tell you what, though, the maths puzzles, fractions, I cannot. Those are my downfall. Give me a block pushing puzzle, I'm your girl. Whoosh, 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 done. Anything to do with fractions and maths, I would not be getting my Hovis bread, Liam. I would not, because I could not work it out.
Rachel would be a thief. Rachel would be a criminal. Professor Layton.
I would.
Yeah, but before the police caught you, you'd have to be like, "Ah, yes, you've backed me in a corner here, officer, but can you solve my riddles 3?"
Yes! My puzzles, my push block puzzles, those are my favourite.
Oh, you do a push block puzzle to evade the police.
Yeah, so like the police are one end, I'm another, and the puzzle is I have to manoeuvre my way. Yep.
Amazing.
Sorted it. There we go.
Great series.
I want it to be real. You've created a world for
Professor
me.
Layton Indy.
I know, that is the sign of such a good game world when you just want to live in it.
Yeah.
Really
Level
is.
5? Probably not.
Level 5, I think, you're probably double A, right?
Yeah.
Oh, this has ruined my life.
Yeah, sorry. I think we might have actually ruined ourselves forever with this episode. So,
But
slight
yes,
risk.
Rebecca, why don't you tell us?
Oh, so I have a couple of things I want to mention because at the moment I'm kind of between hyperfixations. It's been a busy couple of weeks. I've kind of dropped off a lot of the things that I'm usually on my bullshit about Danganronpa. I haven't really played any Danganronpa in like a week, so I'm like, what am I going to talk about? But one thing that I want to give a quick shout out to is a little movie. You probably haven't heard of it, called Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yes.
I love that film so much. I watched it. I watched it for the second time on the night of the Oscars ceremony, and then it went and bloody won everything. So I probably don't need to give it any more like chat than that. Really, it's done all right for itself. But yeah, I really enjoy that movie. It's a lovely film. If you haven't checked it out yet, I recommend it wholeheartedly, and it's lovely to see. I think that's the second sci-fi film in 5 years that's won Best Picture, which is just as a genre fiction fan, nice to occasionally have things that I find particularly interesting turn up at the Oscars.
Yay.
What was the
So that
other
was cool.
one?
The Shape of Water was 2018, 2019.
Oh, yeah. The Sexy Fishman film.
Sexy Fishman
the Del
film,
Toro one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just it's nice to see. I'm not a big film person, but I do like my horror and my sci-fi. So whenever anything from those genres does really well for itself. I'm always very happy. And I will also say, Everything Everywhere All at Once, I cried both times. The second time, most of the way through, I think. It's very uplifting, but very emotional. And I watched it with my parents the second time, which is also just nice because, you know, it's a very, like, it's a story about, you know, intergenerational kind of relationships. And luckily I have probably tell by how much they are also friends of the podcast. We have a very good relationship, but it's a lot better than the relationship between the parents and the children in the film.
Yeah.
But it's still kind of very emotional, I think. Because most people have those kind of relationships in their lives, and it will resonate with them. The other thing that I wanted to mention though, because I don't just want to shout out like arguably the biggest movie on the planet right now, is that another thing that I like to do a lot when I'm kind of feeling the strain a little bit, like I maybe have been over the past couple of weeks and not able to really invest time in stuff that I'm really enjoying, is I like to go through my fan art files. I don't do fan art. There's a good reason for that. I'm very bad at all visual arts, but I can appreciate some good fan art. And I have like little private folders on Twitter and Reddit, I'm sure everyone does, where they just save the... It's not NSFW, Liam. Don't worry. I feel like your face is getting concerned.
No, I was gonna say that anyone can draw. I do not like hearing you put yourself down about that. I wasn't like, oh, they're definitely horny. That was not my train of thought.
I apologise then sincerely for misreading your expression so much. Oh no, Liam's camera's gone.
The cat did that. That wasn't me. I wasn't.
Okay.
My webcam didn't move out of shame.
Sorry,
there,
I thought that I'd offended you so badly that you would just rage quit the entire thing and thrown your webcam in the end. Yeah, that's it. I can't even with her. She's really bad with reading facial expressions, and I just can't. Anyway, sorry. Derail massively. Try and walk it back a little bit. I like to, you know, it's nice to look through fan art that I find particularly like cheerful or inspiring. I know I sent some of it to you earlier, Rachel, just to make us laugh. I thought it'd be nice. I thought it'd be a nice chance to. It was Ace Attorney. Spoiler alert: some of these are Ace Attorney, not all of them. I thought it would be a nice opportunity to shout out some fan artists whose work I really enjoy.
Ooh, yeah.
Just really quickly.
Yeah.
So the one that I sent to Rachel earlier was there's an Ace Attorney fan artist called Angie M on Twitter, or AM. I think that they're not super. They're a little private about, you know, their name, so I'm not going to say anything more about their name. But yeah, they do some really lovely Ace Attorney stuff. Similarly, Paula Peroff, I don't know if you're familiar with her work. She does some really good. She just runs the gamut of my favorite visual novels with like Ace Attorney, Danganronpa, Doki Doki Literature Club. Amazing stuff. Also collaborates with some YouTubers for some like animated shorts in those areas as well. So those are really nice. A few other people I wanted to mention are just Kiana May, that's MAI, who does Pokemon anime almost exclusively Team Rocket stuff, which I approve of wholeheartedly. I love Team Rocket.
Does she work for Cartoon Network?
Potentially, I am not super sure.
I feel like there's someone who I love who does Team Rocket stuff, and she has this thing where she gets the animators from Cartoon Network, and they do little post-it notes of Team Rocket and they stick it on her door. I'm pretty sure it's her. She does the best Team Rocket stuff.
There's some really good Team Rocket stuff on her account. Oh man. And then the other two that I want to talk about were Johnson Blaskowitz, who does Life is Strange very high quality renders of the Life is Strange characters, and Anastasia, aka Nastia Croft, who does Tomb Raider and also occasionally Silent Hill as well. So yeah, I've just been looking through my fan art folders, you know, enjoying nice little vignettes of fan art while I've not had a lot of time. And yeah, those are just 5 of the artists that I follow a lot. So I just wanted to give them a shout out for making me smile when I have been a little bit busy and stressed out in the past couple of weeks.
That's amazing.
What a great recommendation. I'm looking at Angie M stuff, and she's drawn a picture of Phoenix next to Saul Goodman. That is so good.
Yes, it's a good one, right?
I have the same kind of thing as you, Rebecca. I have a separate Twitter account where it's just art, memes, bullshit that just makes me happy. Because like Twitter can be a hellhole. Oh yeah, a hellhole. And so I'm the same as you. So like all the stuff on the, I was just trying to see if I follow any of the people that you were talking about. I have this. My list is too long, but we should definitely trade. I want to share some of my stuff as well. But It is nice. It's like a little slice of paradise. I can just log on and just have a scroll and just. It feels good. I like seeing these characters in comforting. Like it's just comfort characters, isn't it? It's just nice.
Absolutely, and it's just I don't know. It's fan art is not something that I can really produce. I will concede that anyone can draw. I will counter that I cannot draw well, and so it is just for me it's just a very nice thing. It's I guess it's kind of that idea of like a hobby that you have no stake in personally and you can just kind of relax around as well. Is like I know that I'm not going to be producing any fan art like for public consumption, and so I can just chill out and look through my favorite fan art folder for a while and just be like, this is really nice that someone has produced this.
I
can just enjoy it, and it's like you say, favorite characters and like reimaginings and stuff. It's just a cool, nice thing. This isn't really going anywhere particularly deep. I really like those fan artists, so I wanted to shout them out while I was between hyperfixations.
It's a really great thing to shout out, and actually you've made me realize how much. And I was just looking there while you were chatting. There's a Twitter user called Maddie at That's Raspberry. She does little illustrations of like situations in Metal Gear Solid and Resident Evil, and they're always like really charming. Like she draws Big Boss is like this absolute ditz who everyone absolutely loves and adores, and he's just like, can you help me microwave food, and like doesn't understand how the world works.
Oh god.
Oh, I love stuff like that so much.
She's the best. Like I genuinely like it improves my day every time I see just a little doodle she's done of like Leon drawing the S in his name as that S we used to draw at school and stuff. And, yeah. Oh, I like it. Good recommendation. You had mushroom ketchup last time. You got cool artists this time. This is the best.
Oh,
I found the artist. I'm gonna send the stuff, her profile over now.
That would be awesome. Right. Shall I outro us? Is it that time?
It's time.
Outro time, because I'm aware that I need to let you lovely people get on with your evenings. Okay. False start. Good start.
You've got to have a false start. Everyone's got to have a false start.
Mm-hmm.
The millennial pause.
Really?
Have you heard of that?
No. What's that?
Oh, I'm going to waste your time here. The millennial pause
please do.
Is it's something that millennials do because we were so used to when we pressed record that it would take a second or two for something to start. So whenever we're recording something, we press record, we wait a few seconds, and then we start. And people on TikTok, the Gen Zs, call it the millennial pause and like proper rip into any millennials because their videos will have like awkward pauses in between cuts.
Oh shit!
Apparently Gen Zs. I do it. I've noticed it massively. Gen Zs now, they know that when they press record on an iPhone, it starts recording straight away. So they know that they start talking when they press record, but we don't. We go, hey everyone, how you doing?
Yes. Oh my god. Okay. That's
great.
I definitely have that, and like that is the second in which I potentially like panic and don't say anything. I wish I didn't have to live with the millennial pause, but now I have a name for it. So okay, that's good.
I love that. Like that.
That's great
Detail.
Funny, Yeah.
That is so intriguing, and now I'm going to think about that.
Yeah, me too.
Right. And with that said, God. I'll just jump into it, I guess.
Take us home.
Thank you so much for listening to Indiescovery. Your support is always appreciated, and thank you so much again if you've taken the time to rate or review or leave a comment. The response to the first few episodes has been phenomenal. We love getting your feedback. Can't believe how lovely you all are. We really appreciate you guys. If you haven't rated or reviewed us yet but would like to do so, please do head on over to iTunes or your podcast provider of choice to let us know what you think. It's a great way to support the pod, and it's like totally free as far as I'm aware, so that is a really, really helpful way to help us out. Help twice. That's not good, but thank you anyway. Meanwhile, if you'd like to get in touch with the three of us, you can email your questions directly to podcast@rockpapershotgun.com or leave us a comment over on the site or on the RPS Discord server where you can meet like-minded souls eager to bond over the wonders of PC gaming. You can also find us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and something called TikTok that Liam takes care of and I try not to think about.
Boo. Down with that.
So for now, it's goodbye from me, Rachel, and Liam, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.